think that the biggest thing for me when I was attending that school was that I didn't really like have to think about like my blackness and just like being black while I was at school, because everybody who was there just like looked like me, and like we were just all comfortable, and I didn't really have to code switch really. But I think that once I transitioned to my PWI, I kind of like noticed like that like I am like a black student, and like because of that, you know, I'll face like microaggressions, I'll have to like code switch in like certain situations. And I think it's just like that mind shift where you kind of recognize that like you don't like everybody in this space, and you kind of have to not change who you are, but just kind of like adapt to this like new environment.
So ladies, what are your thoughts on that? If anyone can answer.
I completely agree with everything that she just said. It kind of goes back to what Ayana was talking about when she was speaking about affirming yourself in a space. I feel like when I went to my HBCU, and even being in a majority Black space for my graduate degree, I didn't necessarily have to question whether I belonged, because I saw people who looked like me. I was the youngest one in my graduate program. And so imagine these older Black women, you know, and we all know how the community of Black women is, right? So we embraced, right? And so it was just, you know, these women who were embracing me as their baby, taking me on and saying, no, KJ, you're going to do it. And not just you can do it, but you're going to do it. Like, we're going to get through this together. And, you know, I saw myself, I saw, you know, my mom, I saw my grandparents in them. And because of that, I felt like I belonged there, and it helped me to kind of walk with my head held high, as opposed to some of my other friends who did go to PWIs, where they talked to me about how that was, you know, affirming themselves. And like you said, yes, feeling free. That was not the case for them.
I think going back to what you said, KJ, like, you don't have to think about like all the other things, like you can just be. And that was one thing I appreciated about my HBCU experience. Like, when I showed up to class, I was showing up as just like a student, and I wasn't thinking about being the only Black student and the pressures and all of that things. And so I think that too, there's like a freedom that comes with that. And considering like now being in this space, it's like I'm being a student, but I'm also always thinking about all the other things of being the only one, and trying to, like, sometimes like feeling like overcompensating for being the only one. And so I think too, making sure that, like, again, like affirming and just making sure that students recognize like that at your HBCU, like, you have the opportunity to just be authentically whatever that looks like for you, and you can. And I felt like, again, like, that's something that I feel conflicted with in my PWI experience, like trying to thrive, but really feeling like I'm on the survival side. And me and Candace, we have conversations about this all the time. And so just thinking about, like, that's something that I feel like my HBCU gave me. Like, I was just a student, and I was getting all the things I needed. I didn't have to worry about all the extraness that came with that comes with being the minority.
Anyone else can go next, and we have the slide on the screen too. One word that describes the advantages of going to an HBCU.
Definitely what Ayana and KJ said, but really just being able to be just a student. But I also experienced it just a little bit differently coming from the Virgin Islands. And then this kind of segues into your intersectionality, right? So going from a Caribbean background into a HBCU, although I was around Black people, it was great. I still had the code switch, because you may not even know right now, I have a very strong St. Thomian accent from St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. But even being within this space among my Black people, that's still something that I choose to do, because I don't like to repeat myself too many times. But Transitioning into a PWI, it is exhausting. To have to, one, overcompensate and fight imposter syndrome in two worlds. The world of being one of few, and also just the graduate student experience in and of itself. So navigating those two things, but remembering how affirmed I felt within my HBCU, and when I'm finding my footing within the Black spaces in the PWI, and having those supports and people in place to be like, do you remember how you got here? Do you remember all the great things that you did before, are doing now, and you want to do? So listening to those voices and internalizing it for myself and saying it for myself so that I'm able to thrive, not survive, but thrive.
I like that. I like how we kind of keep saying the same thing, thriving versus surviving. Love it. Any other responses? Okay, well, in the meantime, I do like that we're getting some feedback on the Slido. So one word, as far as the advantages of going to an HBCU or another place that you're in a majority, the sense of community, sense of being or feeling at home. Let's see, just make it larger. Feeling affirmed, family, safe. So all these really good, warm words. So Marla, I guess you can go to the next slide, or do you have anything to say?
Well, I think there are two things I'm going to keep on harping on. The one is that the extra work it takes to live in PWI, like this is not like, you don't have to have this extra work. You shouldn't feel obligated to these extra things we have to do. I always make the joke that, when we're in Africa, we eat food and we don't think about the nutrition because it's already been worked out by our culture, right? It already has all the natural foods that we need in it. So we don't have to think about it. That extra work is, it's an added hurdle, resistance to progress, and frustrating. And I think that that's something that we need to alleviate, which is why we want to teach the socio-emotional learning.